Hi,
Mm.
Felicia. How are you? I'm so happy you're here.
Hi. Yes, thanks for having me. I'm glad we could have this conversation. We brought this guy, Lucky.
What is his name?
Lucky.
Lucky. How old is he?
He's 11 months now, I think. Yeah, 11 months.
He's a baby.
Yeah, he's still a baby. We're in this new place, so he might bark if he hears a noise, but he's getting more comfortable every day.
Oh, that's good.
So,
That's good. He's welcome to be here and stay.
thank you. All
So I
right.
just wanted to learn more about you, a little bit more. Um,
Mhm.
so I wanted to know, how did you start your painting life? I don't know how you started.
Okay, yeah. So my mom, she died when I was 7, but when I was little, she was very, very supportive of creativity and she was studying painting. And so at 5, she put me in a painting class, which was very much like a lady who had a studio at the back of a little art supply store. And I would go once a week and she would kind of teach me painting tricks like Bob Rossi kind of things. But I was so
Okay.
proud. And I really think that is the beginning of it because I remember bringing them, and I think my mom got them framed in these elaborate frames, and it was like a hill with dotted flowers. I remember I got to use the fan brush, and I was so excited to make flowers with the fan brush. And a dock scene with seagulls, and like I learned the trick to paint seagulls. Like I was the artist of every classroom my whole childhood growing up.
Okay.
And so I think that early confidence is really important and that identity of like, I'm the artist, I'm the best artist in this class. I remember one year there was a better artist in the class and I was very upset. Um,
And what takes you from that to where you are today? So did you keep going to classes or how was it?
yeah, so then um, I think I found a way to just work on it like most kids do if it's something you're interested in until I was 15 and my aunt and uncle, who I guess had kind of done school administration stuff, decided to buy an art school, and they're not artists. And so they knew that I that I had a talent for it, so they let me come start taking classes, and I did at 15, very on and off. My home life was not stable, and I didn't have a regular rides to go, so very on and off. And then later, when I left home at 17, in my late teens and early 20s, I started going on my own to classes.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it was a very long journey. It started,
Exactly.
yeah. So, basically from teens to mid 20s, I just kind of tried to get it in where I could. And you're doing so many other things in that time, right? Trying to learn
Yes.
to survive on your own and have relationships and learning a lot about yourself. And then at 26, I took a full serious year at the Art Students League in New York, which was 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 12 months in a row. And I feel
Oh,
like
wow.
that was the moment, which was only able to do because they make it so affordable. It was like $200 a month.
Oh,
And
that's
I
awesome.
also worked in the cafe and managed that so that I made sandwiches and boiled eggs and all the kinds of stuff
But
for.
you were surrounded by all the artists that were there, so
Yeah, it
that's
was
super
great. It was
cool.
great. And I having that regular rhythm to my practice really skyrocketed where I was, um, like my skill level. And then after a year, I moved to California. I then struggled for a couple more years to try to figure it out, and then did an art fair because I needed to stop waiting tables. Was at a point where I was like, I had been waiting tables since I was 15, and at this point I was like 29, and I thought people would say like, "Can I get an extra side of ranch?" And I would just say no because I hated my job, and I thought I need to do something else. And there was an art fair, so I put it all in on building this amazing booth where I suspended paintings in the redwood trees and I lucked out and I sold $10,000 worth of paintings. And I got 9 students because I did a trifold brochure, and I was gonna start teaching classes
Uh-huh.
in a studio that I had, gotten, and that was enough. It was
Yeah,
scary 3 years of the first 3 years of being full-time. I woke
yeah,
up every day, like, in terror that I
yes.
was going to starve or get kicked out of my apartment for not being able to afford the rent, but, that was kind of how it started.
That's awesome. Yes, that takes me to my next question because you said you sold everything on that fair. What were you painting at that time?
Oh, I sold portraits and figures and
Uh-huh.
like figures in situations. I sold only like 6 things actually, not
Okay,
everything.
okay,
Just some nice big ones.
okay.
Um, a portrait of an ex-boyfriend in his car. uh, a
So it
portrait
was
of a
mostly figures? You were painting mostly figures at the
Yeah, I
time?
think I was painting all figures, maybe some landscapes then, but mostly
Okay.
figures.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
yes,
mean, I,
because mhm.
go
Just tell
ahead.
me. Mm. That after looking at your Instagram and at your website, you have a diverse amount of subjects that I said, how does she choose her subjects? Like, because I see still lifes and then your color stories with the stickers and the figure and then the Christmas tree with presents that I love. So how did you choose them?
Well, to me, they're not very diverse. It's like people, places, and things. It's pretty much um,
What takes you
everything
to
that's
paint them?
around me. Do you
Ah,
know, like, um, yeah, I'm just painting my experience.
exactly.
So I think initially, back during that art fair, they were more like me trying to make things that look like paintings.
Mhm.
And now I'm just painting my experience. And so there's less paintings of other people doing things and more paintings of my space and the objects in my
Exactly.
space. Um,
I love that. I love that because if you have that in mind, I'm going to paint my experiences. That narrows down to some way because the way you
yeah,
don't start thinking, will I paint an apple? No, I will paint my experience today or this week or wherever I'm living right now. So that's
yeah,
very interesting.
but I don't think that that thought doesn't come first.
No?
That thought is like the realization after you see what you're painting. I
Okay.
think you you follow your intuition and you find the things and the subjects to paint that feel good and feel interesting and that you're engaged with and feel exciting and that teach you.
Mhm.
And you do that, and then there's this string of them in a row, and you look back and you go, huh, I'm painting mostly spaces that I'm alone in that
Uh-huh.
maybe I wish I could show someone else, you know?
Oh, yes.
Something
Oh,
like
I love,
that.
yes, it's like your analysis after you paint, you say, oh, this is,
Yeah, I was kind of talking to you in my imagination on my walk today with this one, and I was thinking, because of one of your questions, it was like, what does it mean to be authentic?
uh-huh.
Because she sent me the questions ahead of time.
Yes, yes.
And so I was mulling it over, and it was something like, it's using your head as a tool to serve your heart or your intuition or your soul or whatever you want to call the part of you that knows things with no explanation. Once
Okay.
it starts trying to explain, this is your mind's
Mm-hmm.
strength, but your heart will just say, like, out of 8 things, which one do you want to paint? That one.
Oh,
And then you don't need, it's just for sure. And you don't need to know why. If you do, if you get curious, you want to know why, you then bring the question back up here and you can argue it out.
okay.
Um, so like,
Yes, so you're painting your authentic Life, yes, it's hard to explain, no? Yes, it's you're bringing, you're choosing with your heart, and
Yes.
then when you put it there, you probably analyze it and say, oh, that's why I was painting this.
Yeah, I would say so for me, like I did a lot of practice with strengthening my relationship with my intuition. And so now it's not like a mysterious thing or magic. It's like a sense, like hearing, that has a lot of nuanced mm, character. And so I can feel my intuition be a very alive part sense, right? Sixth
Mhm.
sense. Um, as I'm going through my day for everything. And so in my
Okay.
studio, one way that I can describe, so I like now, before I used to work on one painting till it was done. It was a very more like masculine energy, like set them up, knock them down, straight through, straight line attack kind of thing.
Mhm.
Accomplishment, finishing it is accomplishment. And now it's more kind of circular and flowing. And I like to have 8 or 9 things going at once, because then I go in and my energy is different every day. Like I said to
Mhm.
you before we started
Yeah,
recording, yesterday I got so much done. The day before, the same. I was feeling up, and today I just like hit a trough in my energy and was like, well, I'm not doing that today. And
yeah.
so on those days, you need options. Like you can still
Mhm.
go to the studio, but you need an option that's not going to require as much energy. And
Exactly.
so back to the intuition as like a compass towards authenticity. It's because you're servicing yourself. You're serving yourself. You're serving your needs, and you're caring for yourself with every choice. Like you're loving yourself. That's what's authentic. Like you're doing the thing that takes care of you.
Mhm.
So I'll look at 8 paintings and I'll just sit there and I don't, it's okay. It maybe is hard to explain, but one of them will feel like there's air, like openness, like there's a pathway beyond it. I could say, it's not like I see this, but it's like one of them has a door you can open and the rest of them are shut.
Yes.
And it feels like that. It just feels
Yes.
like a sparkle, like a possibility,
Mhm.
like spaciousness. And so
Yes. I
that's
think
the one
I
I get.
understand. Yes, because sometimes you feel, oh, I know how to keep going. Like, and for other ones, you say, oh, I don't have a clue. So probably that's a way to decide this is what I'm going to do because I have an
Yes.
idea.
And so instead of the ones where I don't have a clue and you keep hitting it, right?
Yes,
Like
and
just
get
I think the
frustrated.
old way that we were all taught, that was very normal.
Mhm.
It's like that saying, it's 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. I don't agree with that at all anymore. I feel like
Mhm.
that's just like society and the
And rules that
patriarchy having
somebody
a witch
makes.
behind your back,
Yes.
right? No, that's not
Uh,
a good way to get
Yes.
things done anymore. So
Yeah.
it's more like, oh, but the thing about it that's intuition is that, that you have to trust, because if you have 8 paintings there and the one that feels like it has space behind it, like you go, well, I know it's that one because I can feel it, but your brain immediately goes, well, I don't want to, we don't, that doesn't make sense. We're not working on those. We don't know
And
what to
that's
do
it.
with that.
Mhm.
And you have to be like, well, I guess we'll just figure it out because that's the one that feels. And so always trusting your sense, your intuitive sense and nudges and
And
kind
go
of
with it. Yes. Yes.
over your mind saying, yes, but we haven't been working on those. And I don't know if that does seem like a good idea, because that's where you
Exactly.
start to flip flop, and then talk yourself out of everything or into something safe and easy, which actually is draining you because you're not interested in it anymore. That kind of thing.
Exactly. Yes, I love that. I love that. I think I'm going to use that strategy more because I'm the one that painted, finish one painting, starts and finishes. But sometimes I say, but I don't want to paint that. So I don't paint because that's not the one I want to paint. But if I have a couple, I will still be able to paint because, oh, that will be the
Yes,
one that
give
I can.
yourself more options. It's not
Yeah,
black and white anymore. I
exactly.
honestly think we're moving towards a time with more magic and more flow. And I mean, if you think about what happened to the work day and the work week, and since lockdown, everyone's moving towards more flexibility in their
Mhm.
energy and their schedules. I think
That's what we're
around
doing. Mhm.
around the world with everyone, it's going to be like that more and more.
Yeah, I'm
And I think
sure.
this way of working is more, well, it's nicer, feels less
Yeah.
tiring.
Yes, I
Um,
think so. It's more fluid, I think. Yes. And I
yeah,
have, tell me, tell me.
I was going to say an example of it is like one day so I spent like a very hermited year in Detroit alone in an apartment where I was in a block. And so I was trying to learn this kind of, I would call it flow productivity that we are just talking about. But I learned it with house chores and things that I
Oh,
did in the day and grocery shopping because I was really blocked and I couldn't paint. And there was just like too much intensity with the painting. I couldn't flow. And so I first learned it there. And the old way was to make a list and check it off and feel accomplished. Um, if I did them all, but I would always like the first thing on the list would be like, I didn't feel like doing it, but I would force myself to do it because I had to get the things on the list.
yeah.
So I started instead to just wake up, look around, and find the task that felt like it had ease, like it had air, like I was telling you with the paintings.
Yes.
And I would do that and I would be in a good mood and that would lift me up and I would do something else. And I would find every time I did this, I would get everything and more done. I would also have taken a nap or relaxed or eaten chocolate or gone for a walk or enjoyed
Yes.
my day. And I didn't feel tired at the end. And it felt like a dance. And so I just want to say that because I coach a lot of people through like intuition and this kind of energy, but it's often much easier to learn it through ways that are not as important to you emotionally. So grocery
Yeah.
shopping or housework or
Ah,
stuff like that.
yes, I get it. Okay, yes, and you never, like I was thinking about this strategy of waking up and choosing, okay, what do I feel as doing today? Have you used like a list and looking at the list and how do you feel doing of those? Or no, better not using
No,
a
no
list,
list.
no
Okay,
list.
so the thing is, we really want to start trusting that there is part of us that's attached to a higher knowledge. So the way I think of it is like you have a higher self, or like you're one part, this gets very spiritual, but this is what I believe. You're like one part of a bigger energy experiencing this very pinpointed life. Um, but the more you kind of get rid of fear and pain, the more connected you are to that wisdom. And that's what I've found. It's really magical. And so, no, you don't need a list. You are connected to everything you need to do and everything that's good for you. And
Okay,
all you have to do is the next inspired thing and the next inspired thing and the next
follow it.
inspired thing. And
Okay.
it's like trusting yourself, your kind of greatness, your connection to the universe, the big connectivity. Yeah, no, I never need a list. I
Oh,
actually always remember everything that's important.
that's awesome. Oh,
That's
I
why it's
want to that.
important to do it with things that aren't too scary first,
Exactly.
because then you start building trust.
No, that's perfect. I love that. Even if when talking about painting, you can do that with small paintings, paintings that are not going to a gallery, not big projects that might make you tense because it's it has you have a lot, there is a lot of pressure, but things that are small, probably just for you, just to play around and start with those. I love that. I love that strategy. And that takes me to another question I have for you, because that's something that's what you teach. That's how what you teach in your workshops and your mentorship. And I wanted to know, when did you start teaching? Well, how did that happen? Because I see
Oh,
when I look at your website, I read the testimonials of all your students, and they're amazing. They're mind blowing, like thousands of
oh.
testimonials. So how was that?
Oh, but I mean, I started teaching when I told you when I was 29. I mean, I taught
Ah,
like,
when you finish your
uh,
fair and you open, you get the, ah, okay, okay.
yeah. I taught here and there before that.
Mm-hmm.
But I started full time, independent artist slash art teacher um, at 29.
Okay.
So almost 15, about 15 years ago. Yeah, 15
Oh,
years ago.
that's, and did you always teach like this way you're teaching today, like finding your voice, your authentic
No,
self? No? How,
no.
what did you teach before and how did you get from that to teaching what you're teaching today?
Yeah. So what I realize now as I look back is that I'm always teaching what I need to learn and what I
Mm-hmm.
need to
Always.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always teaching at the very edge of my comfort zone
Okay.
because that's the exciting point for learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I first started, I was teaching how to paint, technically, how to paint.
Mm-hmm.
And through that teaching, I solidified my own process in the first couple years so that I would have more consistent results because it felt like a big responsibility to have, 10, 15 students in a class and to be showing them how to paint and to want to give them a process that gave consistent results. And I'm big on responsibility and um, being able to prove what I'm teaching is useful and
Mm-hmm.
valuable. So, through doing that, my technique, I mean, if you looked at what my technique was when I first started teaching to what it was afterwards, 11 years later, 12 years later, it's a world of difference. So I learned a lot about technique while I was teaching technique. Um, the reason that it all crumbled and I had to rebuild it in that artist block and this big transition over the last 5 years is that um, I needed to stop that train. Like I could have just kept being like this corpse robot teaching the same thing I wasn't interested in anymore because it was giving me money and I was too afraid to turn money away to discover what would interest me. But I'm not very good at that. So
Yeah.
I'm not very good at doing things I don't enjoy doing. So maybe that's a lucky characteristic, but it makes me take risks. And so I had to stop teaching technique, which was really like a very successful career with much traveling and workshops, right? And lots of students. It was like if a container ship or a steamship on the ocean liner, you have to stop it. And once it comes to a full stop, you have to figure out how to turn it around and go in a different direction. And then it takes a long time to get back up to steam. So that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
Um, but while I was trying to figure out, well, what's wrong with me? Why am I bored of painting? Like, I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I was like, um, so much happened to me in that where I realized, why am I tired? Oh, what are the reasons I'm painting? And it's stuff like looking for outside approval instead of learning what I like and um, valuing myself enough to explore it,
Mhm.
realizing that I had to provide safety for myself
Yeah.
internally and externally
Yes.
enough to be able to live a life that I like instead of outsourcing that worth and safety, which is kind of a trap where you can't
Yes.
grow too big because you're depending on people who don't even know that you're depending on their approval. Like, I mean, I have a lot to say on that, but so in realizing that I wasn't interested in um, like the technique part anymore that I need to explore, it also kind of coincided with a lot of things that needed to be healed. And so
Okay.
doing that work in the pandemic, in the stillness, and then with basically like a spiritual awakening, which has been a whole nother layer of it.
So that took you to teach this in this new way.
Yeah, so it's just turned out, well, simply what happened is I started healing my own creativity and figuring out how to enjoy it again.
Mhm.
And through doing that, while I was teaching other people technique, because I hadn't stopped doing that,
Yeah.
I started to be able to see really easily what their actual problem was, which
Hmm.
wasn't the technique, because technique without excessive fears or self-worth issues or um, things like that, it's pretty easy to learn in a couple of years. Every
Yes.
single one of you can learn to be a proficient technical painter in 2 years of really hard work.
Yes.
But you go 20 years of kind of hemming and hawing because you have other issues underlying. And so I
Yeah.
started seeing those issues really, really clearly. And I can actually feel them when someone's talking. It feels like something's rustling under the blanket or something. Like
Yes.
that's how
No,
I
I
describe it. I'm
know.
like, oh, there's something there
Yes.
underneath this issue. And so,
No, I totally get it. And I see it every day when I teach. I have many students saying, but how can I find my painting voice? How can I feel like I'm painting my authentic way of painting? So I hear it all the time. And when you said that that's what you were teaching, I said, oh, I found it. I have somebody that could come to help with that. Because yes, I see many students going to workshops and classes and they paint and they end up painting like the instructor because they that's how they love, that's why they chose that class, because they love that way of painting. But many say, okay, now I know this, I know the technique, but how can I now develop my own voice? And that's
yeah,
where where we get now. So what is your voice?
yeah. What is my voice?
What would be the voice
Oh,
of
well,
each person?
yeah, yeah.
How can they find it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very normal if you're in kind of a student phase of your art career to be painting like other painters. That's normal. And in that, like the way that you recognize when it's time to individuate, to become um, an artist instead of an art student, is when it's not interesting to you anymore to paint anything. You know, when I was an art student, I didn't care what we were painting. The act of learning to paint was interesting. I didn't care who was teaching. I didn't care what our palette, like it was just such a like a puzzle that it was so consuming. It didn't matter. I didn't care about if it was a wine glass and an orange and some grapes, or if it was a model. I didn't care what model it was. Every subject was interesting. And then as you get better, you start to like have opinions and preferences, you know? And
Yes.
that's a good sign. And you start to want to, like, if you're a kid and you're growing up and you start to get mad at your parents,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's the same thing.
Like
You
that.
feel this. Yes,
Same thing.
I can see it now. Like you start saying, oh, but I prefer that color, but I prefer this way of using my brush, but I prefer,
Right.
yes,
And the key is that if you want to grow up, you have to grow up. Like you have to be responsible. You have to make choices and stand by them, and you can't get worried when other people don't agree with them. You have to create your own world. You are not, if you're an artist, you're creating your own world with your own points of view and your own philosophy, and you're standing behind it. You are the creator of it. And I think where a lot of people have problems is they're like, well, who would like this? Who would buy this? Right? Like,
yes.
yeah, or
Yes,
yeah,
I
yeah.
totally agree with
So
that. No, no, yes, I love it. And I think your workshop is going to be perfect for that, to help a bunch of people to find their way. Yes.
lucky. Oh, you probably can't hear him. I
No,
was
I
thinking
don't
it was
hear
really
him.
loud, but
No,
it's muting it. Sorry. Okay, good.
no, no, it's perfect. I don't, yeah, sometimes I'm worried because the doors sound the next bedroom and they don't show in the recording.
Okay, good.
No, no, it's
Good.
perfect. So I have one more question for you before we say goodbye. Before I give you that last question, I just want to remind everybody that Felicia is coming to Downtown Apex to Painting Miles next the end of February, beginning of March 2025 to teach a 3-day
That's
painting
in North
workshop.
Carolina.
North Carolina, yes. And it's a 3-day painting workshop here in downtown Apex. And all the details about her workshop is at the Painting Man's website.
There's 5 spots left open.
Just
Five.
5 spots, so hurry up because they're going to go fast. So my last question, that's a question that some people have asked me and also think about them, about our painting voice. So if we're painting one way today, no? And then next day we say, oh, I want to paint this differently. I want to change my palette. I want to paint looser. Will that be that will still be our authentic voice, or we are again
Well,
testing?
why are you changing your mind? What part of yourself are you listening to? If you are switching back and forth based on fear, then no, probably not. If you are switching back and forth based on
Experimentation.
curiosity and
Uh-huh.
desire and, you know, yeah, experimentation, then that's probably fine. But also, each person's journey to like solidifying their voice in their work takes a different amount of time and different amount of journey. Um, Many people can recognize my paintings,
True.
even though there's a lot of different subject matter, they can still recognize my hand in the painting. Um, some painters have a much more simplified body of work than mine.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Mm.
think if your exploration is in a simple way based on love instead of fear, then you're going in the right direction.
Okay.
Um,
Yes, yes, that's a perfect answer. Yes, I think we have to trust ourselves and try and be ourselves, because that's the best way to show that in our painting. So if we love that way of painting, then go for it. Like I think it's more trust. I think we have to trust ourselves more, and also have great instructors next to us to remind us of that all the time. So this was wonderful, Felicia. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to meeting you here in person in February. Yes, you were going to say
Me
something.
too. Oh, I was going to say, um, oh, I have a Patreon where I do group coaching, not painting together like we'll be doing live painting. That's unique, but um, I kind of wanted to make it really affordable so people can join for $5 a month and come and talk live with the group. So if
Uh-huh.
anyone wants to get an idea of what kind of way that I am or teach, it would be an easy way to join in
And get to
just
know
for
you a little
once,
bit. Yeah.
get the
And
idea and talk to me.
can they find that on your
Oh,
website?
on my website, on
Okay.
every social media, there's links everywhere.
Okay, wonderful. Well, now everybody knows Patreon, or come to the workshop. Either way, you can find us, you can email us or DM us on Instagram. And yes, on our websites, you can find all our information. And that's it. I'm looking forward to keep talking with you when I see you in person. And if anybody have any questions about the upcoming workshop, please let us know. And have a wonderful December and all this month, wonderful holidays, and see you next year, Felicia.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.